My best friend brought it up to me the other day, like, remember that man ran in your house? I'm like, oh my God, a man ran in my house. And I kicked his ass out my house. Like, it was crazy though. And I can't believe that I forgot something like that, but like also all the other shit and the drugs, I'd be forgetting.
My story is also about a man that was in my house.
Non-tattoo related?
Of my entire life?
About life?
You're gonna ask me that on the spot?
Yeah.
A lot of interesting things happened when I was growing up, but they were mostly bad. So
I've had a pretty f***ed up life. I don't know if I can't think of anything that my mom wouldn't be disappointed in, so.
I have a couple that I would love to tell, but it would incriminate some people.
I sailed from Panama to Colombia to go to Carnival down there. And then we went to Venezuela, which I don't know if you guys know the situation in Venezuela, but definitely around this time it was very heavy. So I almost died a few times on the way there, or whatever. Got to Venezuela. It was one of the craziest tattoo conventions I've ever been to. I've never seen so much body modification and bad plastic surgery in my life. I don't know if you guys know, what's this guy's name? Red Skull? Yeah. He got his nose cut off. He's got all the shit. He looks f***ing crazy. Well, I ended up doing with him like a couple days after he got his nose cut off. And it was very graphic, and I remember I ended up crying just because I was f***ed up and looking at him, and it was just a whole crazy trip. I have more stories in that time frame, but that was a crazy like 3 months, honestly.
This blew my mind. It happened a few weeks ago. So I have an accountant. She's an older Spanish lady, and her and her assistant called me up. They booked appointments in advance, left a deposit. They're like, we're gonna come in and get tattooed. I was like, awesome. I get their designs ready. They show up for their appointment. I put the stencil on, I lay her in the chair, and then all of a sudden through the front door of the shop comes like 6 Spanish older women speaking just Spanish. I don't understand what's going on. They come in and kidnapped my client from the chair and took her out of the shop like if it was like a drug cartel hit. And like, it was just insane. And they just kept saying, Diablo, Diablo, like it was crazy.
I was tattooing one. I was actually the helper. Maybe I was a tattooer, I can't remember, but I was at the shop and I turned around, this guy walked in. Looked like he could have looked like a zombie from a movie. Looked like he just walked off like a zombie movie. And he had like his teeth were hanging out and he had stuff around his mouth, and he's like, I'll f*** your for $5. And I was like, first of all, I jumped when I saw the guy, and I was afraid to get close because I couldn't hear him. And we had a shop crackhead named Shadow that was hanging out at the shop. And I was like, what? And Shadow was like, what did he ask? He said he'd my for $5. And he's like, oh shit. He gets up, the crackhead gets up, I'm gonna take you outside, son. And I don't know what happened. Maybe he got his $5. But about 5 minutes later, this beautiful supermodel 21-year-old girl walks in, summer dress, looked like an angel. She just floated through the tattoo shop. Everyone was like, oh my God, who's this beautiful lady? She's like, I'm really sorry about my boyfriend. And I'm like, what? Your boyfriend that just offered to start for $5? That was one of the craziest things. Like, if you saw this guy, like, you would think he was dead. He was a zombie. He was like a living dead person with his beautiful model girlfriend. That was crazy. That's one of the craziest things that ever happened to me.
Basically, I'm from a really small retirement town in Florida, and surprise, surprise, there's like a full-blown active cult there that's like, it's known. Like, there's articles on it throughout time. They've been an active cult since like the 80s or 90s. But yeah, it's called the Kashi Ashram. I had a lot of friends who did volunteer there. People were like, yeah, when I went to volunteer there was like hella baby goats, and like, tie that into a report of a guy being like, I was woken up in the middle of the night by children like beating me with like metal and rocks and like socks or whatever. And then they said that he had upset the cult leader, so they had to purify him by dunking his head in like a vat of red paint. If you look into this, like, definitely like trigger warning, there's like abuse and like a lot of sketchy shit that has been reported. I definitely think someone needs to look into it, because also the police in our town have been caught colluding and covering things up for the cult. So it's like, that's over. Like, there's no local justice or anything that's gonna get done. It's very, very bizarre. Like, it's like the most like mix match melting pot of all beliefs cult grift like there could be.
I always sit next to like the craziest people on flights, I think. I find myself very fortunate for the people I've sat next to. I've sat next to pilots, I've sat next to billionaires, but I think the number one thing that sticks out the most was, I think it was my last flight home from New York, actually. And I sat next to which she was very cool. She was interesting. She showed me her boobs mid-flight. Yeah, she also gave me drugs. It felt like a 10-minute flight because it was just so entertaining. I felt like I was on TV.
Why did she show you her boobs?
She told me they glow in the dark. And it was really dark. It was a night flight. And so she took her flash and my flash. So she grabbed my phone and she puts the lights on underneath.
Oh, it's because they're implants.
Yes, and they were glowing. Like, it was, I don't know, I've never seen that before, but let alone on a flight, I think that was the last thing I expected. It was definitely a unique experience for sure.
So there's this like children's fair
That's a good
very
one.
close to our house.
So it's easy to travel there and get there, but we realized we hadn't been there in a long time. That, you know, when you're younger, it seems like it's filled with like other adults and teenagers, but we realize over time maybe the demographic has changed, but we're now the only people on acid. It's during COVID, so it's pretty sparse now. And there's probably like 40 other families with only kids. We're the only people that weren't like under the age of 13 and over the age of 50. So it's just
Yeah.
us bearing down the middle demographic.
Definitely.
Clearly having the time of our lives. Too much fun for a little kiddie park.
It's like a Flintstones themed
So we spent
park.
the day like doing the water gun squirting thing with like us with like 8
10
other 6-year-olds.
kids, and I'm like, F you, I'm winning. Like, you're not winning.
She's got a
this.
real potty mouth, so she'll even swear with the little children.
I was flipping them off through the barriers that they had, so we couldn't even see each other. Just peek behind, give them the.
And I feel we won some prizes, but I feel like we had less than the average competition with 6-year-olds against us. So, you know, it can be.
Yeah, I wasn't really the
big
champion of
stuffy
the day,
against
was I?
the other racers, but we did win.
It was a good time.
So I was going on a date with somebody. We went on a date. We're having a really good time. They got a text message. They're like, "Oh my God, like someone's hurt. Like I have to leave. Like so, like it was like a family emergency or something." And I was like, "Oh my God, like you should leave. Like go do your thing. Like da da da, whatever." And then like I realized that we were going like towards like the same direction, and I was like, okay, cool. So we're like talking or whatever, and then we like get to my place, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I was like, why is he stopping at my place? And I was like, well, this is where I'm going. And he was like, wait, are you for real? And I was like, yeah, this is exactly where I'm going. And he was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden my roommate opens the door, and she's like, oh, hey, Jesse. And I was like, what the f is going on right now? He was leaving my date to go hook up with my roommate. And we had walked the whole way f***ing home, and I was just like, yeah, this is where I'm at. And his jaw dropped. And my roommate opened the door, hey, Jesse. And I was like, you've got to be f***ing kidding me right now.
I smoked a joint with Flava Flav one time. That was pretty cool.
I met Katy Perry through, me and my friends were smoking outside a cigarette. She was at the same restaurant and she came up to us and asked for a cigarette.
I actually hate smoking weed and most of the time have absolutely horrendous experiences doing it. And this was a really pleasant, good evening. He was a really nice dude.
It was cute. She was really chill. And then she's like, all right, I'm gonna go to Canada now, bye. And then got in a big van and left.
I was filming something with these hip, really cool kids, the D'Amelio sisters. They're like really famous on TV or TikTok or something. And they were super sweet. And we're filming something for a show, and it was a competition between each sister. And we're doing oranges, and we're like doing a competition who can tattoo the cleanest lines and stuff. And it was just fun. So I'm like helping Charlie, one of the sisters, like do the tattoo on the orange. After she comes to me, she goes, Luke, I accidentally tattooed myself. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I was messing with the thing and I gave myself this dot right here. And I was like, oh shit. Like, you know, it's not a huge deal, but it was just like a really funny moment of like, oh shit, you know?
One of my favorites was
Leslie Nielsen. I met Leslie Nielsen a handful of times, and when I first met him, I asked him if he thought OJ did it, and he was really not into answering that question.
First of all, let me tell you, I was so hype. I became like a superhero. I mean, I was working out at the time, but I wasn't like super. Anyways, I ended up in the bathroom doing push-ups. Like I was on one, okay? And then I was tripping with all these people that were like body modified, like the vampire woman, Red Skull was there. It was just all these people with body modifications, and I was just like, what the f? Like just, it was good, it was bad, it was good, it was bad. I was doing push-ups, it was good, it was bad.